Please introduce yourself and tell us about Infinity Blue Group.
I'm Al Baker, Group CEO, Global CEO for Infinity Blue Group. Infinity Blue Group is a global accelerator partner for brands that want to scale internationally and domestically across border. Infinity Blue Group have got offices in the US, South Africa, Australia, Dubai, London, Germany, Poland, and finally across into Netherlands. We cover a broad spectrum of marketing channels and digital channels and retail, bricks and mortar. So we're specialists in marketplaces being Amazon, Walmart. We're one of 20 Walmart partners. The office is in Arkansas, Bentonville, so the home of Walmart. We're a TikTok shop partner, and we work with a number of other global marketplaces. We are we have also got a department, we call it, within commerce. Within commerce, that is all about driving traffic, revenue driving traffic into your own brand website, whether that's by Google or Meta or affiliates or email. We cover all of that. And then the final piece of the jigsaw is around content. A lot of brands have either got that in-house, but some of the smaller brands don't have that ability to create engaging, eye-catching content. So we've got a content hub, we call it, which down in South Africa and Europe, where we can produce up to 2 to 4 pieces of UGC content per week for brands if need be, as well as branded content. All of the offices that we've got are all specialists within their own region, so they know the culture, they know the sales opportunities, the sales channels, and they know where the biggest size of the prize would be. So yeah, that covers Infinity Blue Group.
Tell us about your professional journey leading up to the role as CEO of Infinity Blue Group.
My journey started too long ago, unfortunately. So I've got about 25 years experience within brand and data. And I launched my first marketing digital agency, which was called Think, which we then, me and my business partner at the time, sold to a Emiratian company across into Dubai. And from there, my journey's always been around data and understanding customer journeys and where products and customers align. And this was formed when I used to work client side. So my background has been predominantly a mix of agency and client side. And I think that it really came to head when the last position I had, a client side role where I was on the board. And I was struggling to find how to get my product into multiple markets with ease, and a company that actually understands how to do it, and also how they can actually understand the structure of a commercial P&L. So we all know going into a new market is going to cost money. It doesn't need to cost too much money, but how do you do it profitably and obviously grow and scale? So there was no real company that I could find when I did a search, and I spent quite a lot of time searching for it. So yeah, that's how Infinity Blue Group was formed. And then the subsidiaries that we've got in the offices, that was just then followed thereafter, thinking that we want to go into the US, but we need people on the ground that understand it. So that's been my journey to Infinity Blue Group's launch.
Describe Infinity Blue Group's mission and core values.
Our mission and core values is simple. The values is our clients and our partners. How do we help and drive their products and their mission and their values into new markets, into new customers? And I think culturally, we're something that I'm quite passionate about. We're generally a remote business, so all the staff are remote. So culturally, it's really key that we get the right people on board. So I think that's something that I'm quite passionate about, that vision piece.
What differentiates Infinity Blue Group from other groups in the space?
I would say in terms of the differentiation between the Infinity Blue Group and other, say, our competitors, and our USPs would be the fact that we have those offices in these global locations. We have people on the ground that know the culture, know the sales channels, know what works, and what not to do. We also have really great strategic partners in legal certification. So a CPG brand comes and they want to go into the US, we know the people to talk to that can check the labeling, check the ingredients, if they've got, depending on the ingredients in the product. If it's electronic, make sure that it's all compliant. We help from that at that point. So a lot of our USP is the fact that we do hold brands' hands into new markets that we play in from that very beginning, that like starting point, and we can point them in the right direction of who to talk to. And then once you're in the market, obviously we can then get them set up in terms of all the digital marketplaces or platforms or channels, or indeed into those bricks and mortar that we've got relationships with. So that would be a real differentiator from Infinity Blue Group and maybe another partner that might just want to focus on Amazon or might want to focus just on Walmart or Google or Meta. We have that whole broad spectrum of like, we can look at it holistically about what is going to work and what's not going to work. And we're very direct and honest with brands as well to say that this wouldn't work, but hey, this might work, or don't you think you might want to go into Germany, but actually have you thought about South Africa because that's more lucrative for you.
What are some notable successes that Infinity Blue Group has achieved?
I think since our establishment, it's probably the growth that we've had internally. And the success of when we've opened an office. And it goes down to that people. We are very, very fortunate in terms of we find and we have found exceptional people that know the market and they're able to grow their own entities with the support of the group. It goes without saying, obviously, we've got successes with global brands, small brands that we've taken globally. But I think a lot of our competitors have already got that. I think the big success I've seen, and obviously really proud of it, is the fact that we have enabled ourselves to go into these markets, create great relationships, and then open these offices that are growing independently outside of the group.
How can U.S. brands and sellers be leveraging international e-commerce marketplaces?
So I think in terms of how we are seeing it, and we're seeing it more now, in the last probably 12 to 18 months, we're seeing more and more US brands wanting to come and go international. I think they're seeing it, the fact that with companies like Infinity Blue Group, the fact that we've got the presence in multiple markets, they are finding actually that you can do it with ease. And the compliances and everything around the legality and selling are similar but very different. But with us, we can make that easy and seamless. So I think there's multiple different market, obviously, channels that you can go into. Much like in the US, you've got states, you've got counties. Again, it's the same thing within Europe. Obviously, Europe has different jurisdictions and countries, but each country, again, has different laws about what you can and can't sell and where you can and can't sell it. But again, it goes back to that point of we've got these people on the ground. This is their job. This is what they do, and they know. So yeah, that's I suppose, how can we leverage it? It's obviously doing these type of conversations, speaking to people that's obviously part of conversations on retail that are actually figuring out it can be quite easy to sell into other markets, and just to obviously give us a call.
Which e-commerce platforms currently offer the most significant growth opportunities?
So I think within the US, I think we're most excited about Walmart and the amount of obviously traction and investment they're putting into not just within the US, but also other markets that they're playing in, as in like Mexico, Chile, Canada, and also coming into Europe as well. And they've obviously the acquisition they did down in South Africa around Massmart, which is really excited to be part of that Walmart family. But I think other in-market platforms are really exciting to see what's going to happen. Obviously, TikTok Shop, we all know what the conversations and everything's happening within the US, whether it still is there or not. But obviously, TikTok and TikTok Shop are opening into new markets. So I think that's another one that we're really excited to work with, and obviously see where that journey goes.
How can suppliers adapt their products and marketing to appeal to international audiences?
So I think that's where the team on the ground can really help, and the nuances that you need to change, whether it's obviously clearly the language, but also the cultural changes. A lot of the things that we do, again, it's that I suppose it's cross-border with ease, is always look at if there are, let's say, a UK brand or a US brand coming into the UK, is to find English-speaking countries to go into, because that's going to be your least resistance. And also you can then utilize your existing content to a degree. But there's certain things, for example, with the Australian brands, a lot of their content is the nature of Australia. It's beaches, it's sunny, it's beautiful. In most locations, I think what we generally find is that doesn't really work in parts of Europe and UK. So actually having the ability to still keep the brand's essence and values and proposition, but change it and put it into a different surrounding is really, really important. But we, again, that's part of our onboarding process with brands, is just to help and guide them to say around the content piece.
What logistical challenges do suppliers face when expanding internationally, and how can they address them?
Things that brands will always come into, I suppose, roadblocks with is trademarks. Legalities around if there's certain ingredients in their product that's legal in some, obviously, their states, but then if they come into Europe or UK or other markets, it's not. So having that, being able to adapt it if they need to. But again, going back to the initial introduction, they're the sort of things that Infinity Blue Group and its partners can help brands with and advise. So yeah, the roadblockers we've always seen is, have they got a trade? So they think they want to go into from UK to US, brilliant. And we've seen it before where there's a brand that thinks it's fine. They've got a worldwide trademark, so it's all good. But actually, when they go into the US, they then get it all. They have to go into more detail around getting specific trademarks. So I think that's a big one. Around the legality around the ingredients and the packaging and what you can and can't say and what you need to say in certain markets, but we've got those partners in place to help.
How can suppliers ensure compliance with international regulations across e-commerce platforms?
So I think that's another similar question to the one just answered, is I think it's a case of down to the partners that we work with that can really, really help with that. And we've got a specific partner who looks after not just the within, let's call it within the actual what's the product, but also look at the packaging. And it's all an online, you can upload it into an online portal for a small monthly fee. And they will then tell you in each of those markets what needs to change. And to the certain extent, they can through AI show you what that end packaging should look like and should have on it.
What is the role of localization in product success on international marketplaces, and how can suppliers implement it?
It's huge. So it's a huge piece. I think it's going back to that point around if you're US coming into the UK, going to Australia, going to the South Africa, going to markets that generally majority of people speak, obviously the English language, that's key. But actually going into parts of Europe and other markets as well, I think having localized content needs to happen. Otherwise you will harm conversion rate, you'll harm the buying journey for a customer, and they won't then buy from you. They're just buying an alternative one.
How can U.S. suppliers build and maintain brand recognition and trust in foreign markets where they may be less known?
The biggest thing we've seen is user-generated content, which is why we've got Infinity Blue Creative that's based, and that's what they do. They create UGC content for brands, and it's real life people trying the product in those markets that you're going into. And that's the biggest, I suppose, trust piece for a brand going into a new market, is do that. And then obviously there's things that are not within the Infinity Blue Group's wheelhouse around PR and those type of internal communications that brands need to then look at as well.
What current global e-commerce trends should U.S. suppliers be aware of when considering international expansion?
I think the big thing, again, just from experience, what we're seeing at the minute is certain categories seem to do a lot better with US brands coming into UK, Europe and other markets. And likewise out of markets into US. So I think that's the one thing that we can give brands is the first thing we do as part of an onboarding process is we do some DD around who the brand is. We look at their particular category, their market share within the category, and then overall market share of the brand and the markets they want to go into, just to see whether it's a good opportunity or not. So I think that's what we can do as part of the process when speaking to a brand.
What KPIs should suppliers track in order to measure success in international e-commerce?
Part of our obviously working with Infinity Blue Group, we actually have automated reports that get sent out weekly to all our clients. And the key KPIs on there is all around the usual drivers of spend, revenue, conversion, engagement, impression, sessions. And obviously we do it at a granular level on content. So a lot of the platforms that we work on is all around test and learn. So I think they're the KPIs, and we've got a KPI tracker that all clients then lead and obviously go into and have as part of working with us.
What tools and platforms are essential for managing sales across numerous international e-commerce sites?
We have a number of partners that we work with that are proprietary software to us and sit outside of Infinity Blue Group, but we recommend, and obviously we're long-standing partners with them, and they work with us across multi-markets, multi-platforms, multi-channels, and they bring everything into one dashboard, which is really, really, I suppose, imperative and so important for brands that are going into new markets. To see how each market, each channel, each piece of content even is performing across multi-market. So yeah, that's how we do it.
How can suppliers effectively manage international payments and currency exchange?
Again, we work with two or three really, really good proprietary software and partners that again manage the payment processes between different countries that have different tax or VAT abilities and obviously restrictions in some cases. So, and they work with us across all our international clients.
What are some best practices for serving international customers across language and time zones?
Yeah, customer service is key. I think if you were to focus in on specific global marketplaces, if we were talking about marketplaces like the Amazons and the Walmarts, and then if you're sending stock into those fulfillment hubs and into their ecosystem, they will manage in multi-market, multi-language, the customer service piece. If you go more into the traditional alongside marketplaces into commerce, then again, we have got partners that we work with across the markets that we play in that have customer service entities already set up to manage just this, exactly that, to help brands manage customer service. And it's at a very reasonable rate as well.
What marketing tactics work best for U.S. suppliers entering international markets?
What we usually see with brands, and this is both US and any market, is if they're doing well in certain markets, they're doing well on certain channels. Now, if those certain channels are global, so I'll give you an example. If a brand in the UK has got all channels working and firing on all cylinders, but actually there's a handful, 2 or 3 that are doing really, really well with really low risk, low cost, they're the channels that we would then look to see if they exist in the new market, and they're the ones that we'd onboard first, because we know we've got proven track record, proven KPIs, proven content that we can see into those new channels. but it's definitely not a go into new markets and turn everything on. It's turn on the channels that are the highest performance, lowest risk, increased profitability.
What risk do suppliers face when expanding internationally, and how can they mitigate them?
Yeah, the risk in terms of the new brands going into new markets would be around the trademark, would be around the legality legislation. It would be around entities and setting up entities. So in best practice, it's always better if you're going into a new market is to set up yourself as a new entity. So you can obviously, it's rather than either you try and use a third party or try and do it from using your, I suppose, let's call it a UK, if you're a UK brand, UK entity into the US. There are ways to do it, but I think as best practice is always go through the least risk. And of course, Infinity Blue Group, we've got associated partners that can support along the way in all the markets that we play in.
How should a supplier's supply chain adapt for international e-commerce?
I think the biggest thing that we've seen, and we've seen it since the COVID days, is the cost of shipping and logistics in general. So a lot of things that we're actually seeing with international brands going into new markets is finding really good partners that can be almost like contract packers. So you're not having to ship large bulk products or just product in general. You're actually getting it made and produced in that market. And we're seeing that actually is a really good, I think you called it like an adaptation from a supply chain point of view. And we're seeing it work really, really well.
What is the future of global e-commerce, and how can US suppliers prepare?
I think the biggest thing is just identifying the right channels, but have that multi-channel approach. And when I say multi-channel, I don't just mean within e-commerce, I mean bringing it to life within a phygital perspective. So in-store and digital, not just if you're not selling in bricks and retail, then actually, but you're selling online, then actually having that ability, if the retailer has it, being able to sell off digital displays, shelf displays, is something that we're really seeing, again, a strong success with across the brands that we're working with.
What are Infinity Blue Group's long-term goals for supporting suppliers' growth in international e-commerce?
I think it's continue building strong partnerships with proprietary software systems, new partners that are coming into the market or existing, and partnering with those. And I think it's just, again, being there to be that real support to brands. A lot of the brands that I personally have got involved with, I do sit on the board and help them and guide them if need be. So it's not just a one shoe fits all approach. We really want to be there to support and help our partners and brands excel. The best way for any brands that want to speak to either myself from a group point of view, or if you wish to speak to an in-market, the MDs of the market, please feel free just to reach out. Probably the best approach is to myself, which is alan@infinitybluegroup.com, and then I can then direct your inquiry to the relevant person in the market.